I'm going to avoid the dancing first and then focus on the traffic instead. The traffic nightmare that is EDSA remains an unsolved puzzle to this day. Countless proposals have been made, yet a lasting solution to Metro Manila's infamous bottleneck remains out of reach. What concrete steps can we finally take to address this Herculean challenge? Joining us for this discussion is Jedd Ugay, a spokesperson of AltMobility. Magandang umaga, Jedd. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, magandang umaga, Paulo, and to everyone watching.
Jedd, first of all, nag-viral ang consideration or yung proposal or yung idea that the government is considering removing the dedicated bus lanes on EDSA after the completion of the MRT3, the expansion ng MRT. What do you think of this idea first and foremost, yung proposal na to?
I think it shouldn't have gotten to the public from the start pa lang. That nag-usap pa sila muna with DOTR, nag-consult with DPWH kasi after nun, di ba, parang biglang may counter-arguments ang DOTR. So mag-usap muna sila before they go to public.
So PR mess para sa'yo in terms of the idea coming out?
I think backward siya, going back to the old days na pre-carousel, if you would remember. And actually, even currently, if you see C5 and Commonwealth, which don't have the exclusive bus lanes, very traffic na dyan ngayon. But the main point there is that we're making EDSA less efficient. The bus lanes are more efficient than the pre-EDSA carousel scenario because we're moving more people per hour on that road because buses take around 50 passengers per vehicle, while cars can only move around, on average, 1.5. You can say could house like 5 people, but normally it would just have like 1.5 average number of persons inside.
Exactly. Now, Jedd, instead of removing the bus lanes, what improvements should be made to maximize its efficiency?
So we should definitely prioritize the movement of public transport because they carry more people. We should change the metrics of MMDA and the other agencies where they always focus on the number of vehicles that are being moved rather than knowing or like calculating how many people. Because if you can move like 3 buses but each would have 50 passengers each, then that's 150 people compared to moving like 60 cars. If you can see cars moving, it won't be as efficient as the bus lane. So more priority for bus lanes, and actually we should implement the EDSA carousel in other corridors like Commonwealth, Ross Boulevard, C5, and other major roads.
So, Jedd, another thing that got quote-unquote leaked to the public and that also went viral, so they're saying they might start charging EDSA as well and make it like a toll road to lessen the congestion. What are your thoughts on that?
That's an interesting proposal. Some countries have been implementing that, most recently New York, and they've had some success in reducing congestion and improving like funding for public transport if they have that connection. But basically, what we have in the Philippines is that car use is not priced properly, so there's overconsumption. But actually, if you take into account the congestion cost, the environmental cost, and the like cost to develop the roads and the transport infrastructure, they're actually subsidized by the public taxes. So if we try to correct and increase, like for example in Singapore, they have congestion charging, but also higher car registration fees, then that will actually also impact or discourage the use of cars and would free up space, particularly for public transport.
You brought up Singapore as an example, and if you know anyone from Singapore, there is a big challenge with owning their own vehicle because it is incredibly expensive, not just to buy the vehicle, but then these charges that come along with it, as you mentioned a while ago. Let's say the Philippines does adopt that. That would force Filipinos to take a more commuter first approach when it comes to their travel. How is the capacity of our commuting system? Can it actually service the amount of people that are moving up and down our major thoroughfares?
So currently, no. We know that queuing time, the passenger waiting time are long for public transport. That's why we have to increase capacity, increase the number of express bus lanes, and like make it more, prioritize it on the road. And the way that congestion charging and all these proposals do is that in the registration fees, they fund these additional public transport supply requirements. So it just makes a positive loop towards financing additional public transport supply. So we think that that's a good approach that we should be exploring.
Jedd, the EDSA carousel, it's just a part of a bigger picture. How can we ensure seamless connectivity between buses, trains, and other transport modes?
Yep, that's a good point. A lot of the times we don't look at the transfers. So these are the stops and the stations, and also the pedestrian facilities. Because if you have, basically we have to improve them, because basically if you have a good bus system or a train system, but the access from your house going to the public transport system is not good, the people would still be discouraged. So we have to improve pedestrian facilities, make it safer, make it more connected, and particularly the stations as well, of like the bus stop and the train station, if we can. These are the things that our transport agencies should also be planning for.
Naalala ko bigla yung Shaw Boulevard Station where it's just so high. Like, it's
The
so steep.
overpass?
Right.
Yung sa, going to the station
Is
sa
that the
Shaw.
one with a ramp that
Yeah.
there's no stairs? It's just a ramp?
No,
like a
I
steep
don't believe that's the one. Pero grabe, and it's one of the more famously steep stations. But then, when you take a look at the what's missing in our transport system, especially when you look at other countries that we're going to try to emulate, what do you think that is?
This mindset of moving people instead of counting the number of vehicles that we move would be a big shift for MMDA and DPWH and all the transport-related agencies to start thinking about. Because when you focus on the number of vehicles on the road, that might not be the best metric to planning all these infrastructure and policies. Because if we can move more people with less vehicles, that's actually better and more efficient and more inclusive for our people. So just that could be a good start for our transport agencies, and that's how other countries have been doing it. And actually, one thing to note is that we don't. I think MMDA, DPWH, and DOTR would not have as robust traffic counting for bikes and pedestrians compared to vehicles. So they would have like vehicle traffic count reports annually, but they won't have it for pedestrians and bikes. And if you don't know what you're measuring, if you don't measure them, you won't be able to plan for them properly. So let's start with that.
Jedd, what are your thoughts? What about motorcycles? Do you think they're contributing to the problem? Do you think they should have a dedicated bike lane as well? Or are they okay with just merging with everybody?
Since we have a significant volume of motorcycles, it might be good to explore having a separate motorbike lane, but it should be separate from the bike lane. So if the bike lane is actually getting half of a road, half of a lane, then if the motorbike can use the other half, then maybe that's something that the transport agencies can consider.
Yeah, that's been a controversial topic somewhat. Talking about
Motorcycles, yeah.
not just that, the bike lanes
Yes.
taking space along EDSA instead of what should be the pedestrian lane
Right.
to safeguard the cyclists themselves, because anong laban ng cyclist against even a motorcycle, mas lalo na
Actually,
kotse. But of course, you take a look at the possible long-term solutions. A lot of this is going to be policy-based, Jedd. You look at the priorities that you feel that the policymakers need to make. Are there any ideas? Are there any bills right now that are either in Congress or in Senate that you feel could actually help alleviate yung problema natin sa EDSA?
Meron na dating na-approve na bus rapid transit for EDSA and even Quezon Ave. And I think in Roas Boulevard, there was also something like that. And on C5, if they can revisit that. So those are like, it's a carousel type of projects that has been approved by the NEDA board in like several years ago, but did not push through. Like similar to how the Cebu BRT is delayed. So we should do more of these road public transport projects because obviously the best would be railways and subways, but they're expensive and they won't come in less than a decade, probably. It would take several years to develop, but road transport projects are things that you can do in less than a year. Like the EDSA carousel shift from to the EDSA carousel was done in just several months if we really have the political will to do it. So let's try to do more projects that prioritize public transport on our roads that are already congested.
So with everything that you suggested, Jedd, do you ever think that Manila traffic can ever be solved? Because when I'm driving, I feel so hopeless. I don't think anything's gonna solve this unless, do you think we should shift our expectations towards better public transportation instead of fixing the traffic?
That's right. I agree. Traffic is just a symptom, but people movement and shifting to people-centered metrics in public transport and transport planning in general would be the best way to go. If we try to solve traffic, we will never solve it with extra road widening, extra lanes, extra expressways, because that just facilitates or encourages more car use. But if we actually shift the question that we're answering into how many people can we move with this project? We know that we can't expand it anymore. How can we make the road more efficient? And that's really public transport and walking and cycling.
Is there an engineering solution left? Because I remember, especially when they expanded the Skyway to connect SLEX to NLEX, that was supposed to be one of the solutions to decongest EDSA. Are there any engineering solutions that are possible still to try and help the congestion of EDSA?
Aside from the railway projects in the pipeline, we need more bus rapid transits and more EDSA carousel type of projects actually. So rather than removing them, we should actually have more in other corridors as well, not just in Metro Manila, but in Metro Cebu, Metro Davao, and all these other metropolitan cities that are also already congested. So these infrastructure projects are, I think, what we need.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much for joining us, Jedd Ugay. He is a spokesperson for AltMobility. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.